don't know if I'm the only one. Never in my entire life have I seen a situation when a shooting happens and then somebody completely unrelated to the shooting that just happened jumps up and down and says that they did it and gets arrested for saying that they did it.
The untouchable truth. Why Charlie Kirk's death still doesn't add up. Imagine this. A high-profile political figure is killed in a shocking public act of violence. Authorities swoop in, name a lone radicalized shooter, and officially close the case. Simple, right? But here's the twist. When you pull back the curtain on the tragic death of Charlie Kirk, that tidy narrative instantly shatters, replaced by a maze of bizarre decoys, convenient timelines, and a critical piece of evidence that seems to have vanished into thin air. Forget what you think you know about this case. Tonight, we're not just analyzing a tragedy. We're investigating a story where almost every single detail, from a surprise internal audit to the shooter's impossibly precise escape, feels less like a tragic accident and more like a carefully managed operation. Why do countless people online and off the record believe the official explanation is a total fabrication? Stick around, because we're diving deep into the swirling controversies, the missing pieces, and the powerful forces that might have wanted this case closed before the real truth could surface. The first, and perhaps most explosive, shadow hanging over this entire event is the sudden, high-stakes financial review Kirk had ordered at Turning Point USA. This wasn't some routine quarterly checkup. This was a complete, sweeping forensic audit initiated just a week before his death. Kirk and his newly appointed COO, Justin Strife, weren't just looking for misplaced receipts. They were digging into everything from huge organizational expenditures to the ultimate source of powerful donor funds and potential foreign connections. As those close to the organization noted, this level of scrutiny doesn't just annoy people, it terrifies people. It threatens to expose entrenched interests and powerful actors who prefer to operate in the dark. In the world of high-stakes politics and finance, an audit can be a hand grenade, blowing up career and relationships. The very moment Kirk initiated this internal investigation, he effectively put a massive target on his own back. The timing, for many observers, is simply too perfectly aligned. A man who started asking uncomfortable questions about powerful money is dead days later, and the audit naturally grinds to a halt. Was his death a political attack, or was it a calculated, preemptive strike to silence a financial discovery that would have rocked the political world? We need to ask ourselves which explanation makes more terrifying sense. Then we encounter one of the most baffling characters in this entire drama, George Zinn. Picture the scene. Chaos erupts after the shot is fired, and amidst the confusion, a 71-year-old man, totally unarmed and with no discernible connection to the crime, steps forward and declares, "I did it." This bizarre, completely false confession instantly created a cloud of confusion for law enforcement and the media. Zinn was a spontaneous, real-life smokescreen, instantly drawing critical attention away from the rooftop sniper who was executing a clean escape.
They said that Charlie wasn't just concerned about where the money was going, but also where the money was coming from.
He was immediately branded the decoy boy. But here's where it gets truly unsettling. Authorities later discovered highly compromising, unrelated material on Zinn's personal devices. This detail immediately raises the specter of manipulation. Historically, vulnerable individuals have been coerced or compromised into acting as pawns for larger agendas. Was Zinn truly just a random, confused old man? Or was his false confession a calculated maneuver, perhaps leveraging his compromised status, designed specifically to buy the real perpetrator the time they needed to vanish? The answer to that question profoundly changes how we view the official narrative. And so we arrive at the alleged killer, Tyler Robinson, the 21-year-old. officially deemed the lone assassin.
George Zinn, accused of obstructing justice, was also booked in connection with images on his cell phone related to child abuse.
The official story is that he was a radicalized individual acting on political hatred. Surveillance footage shows him scaling a railing onto the Utah Valley University rooftop, armed, moments before the fatal shot. 8 minutes later, a controlled, precise shot, and then a clean getaway into the nearby woods. The DNA evidence, they claim, links him to the rifle. But look closer at the inconsistencies. The state governor, Spencer Cox, initially described Robinson in a completely different set of clothing earlier that day, suggesting a prior reconnaissance trip, a key detail that was later quietly dropped from official documents. Even weirder are the childish, yet politically charged messages reportedly carved onto the bullets. Did this young, politically estranged man really execute a complex, professional-grade assassination, complete with a clean entry, precise shot, and controlled escape, all by himself? The setup, the execution, and the immediate vanishing act are the hallmarks of a trained operation, not the chaotic actions of a lone, angry amateur. These details aren't just minor footnotes. They are the cracks appearing in the official foundation. The mystery deepens when you compare the official portrait of Robinson to the people who actually knew him. The indictment paints him as a seething, politically obsessed radical, hostile to Kirk's causes, a profile reinforced by estranged family accounts. Yet, the people in his community, neighbors, classmates, describe a quiet, mechanically inclined young man who actively avoided confrontation. They saw an orderly, reserved person, not a theatrical, high-risk political assassin. This dramatic disconnect between the government's narrative and the personal reality suggests a major oversimplification, if not a deliberate framing of the suspect's motivation. Could someone with this subdued profile truly pull off such a precise, complex operation? The clash between external perception and official explanation leaves wide open space for the possibility that Robinson was either directed, coerced, or simply not acting alone. And what about Lance Twiggs, Robinson's partner? He remains an ambiguous ghost in this entire story. Public reports frame him as completely cooperative and totally uninvolved. However, sources suggest the text messages between the two, cited in official filings, were deliberately left without crucial timestamps. Think about the implications of that omission. Without knowing the exact timing, we have no idea if Twiggs was a passive partner caught in the aftermath or an active participant with crucial, perhaps directional prior knowledge. Why would authorities leave that ambiguity? Some argue it was an intentional decision to keep the focus solely on the lone gunman narrative for political optics. Was Twiggs merely an unlucky bystander, or was he a silent accomplice whose connections may have offered him legal insulation? This persistent ambiguity surrounding his role is a significant contributor to the enduring suspicion, a glaring example of how missing information creates space for doubt. From the very beginning, the media's approach cemented the lone shooter narrative. The focus was simple: Robinson, the radical; Zinn, the brief distraction; Twiggs, the cooperative witness. Alternative interpretations, especially anything pointing toward a deeper financial motive related to the audit, were largely sidelined, but the cracks were visible. Governor Cox's changing story about Robinson's attire, the strategic release of only select surveillance stills, and the total absence of full video footage all fed the growing skepticism. By tightly controlling the elements of the case that were allowed into the public eye, this media framing didn't just report the story, it carefully managed the public's perception, leaving analysts to try and fill in the deliberate, unsettling gaps. But the single most provocative absence, the one that screams loudest, is the missing autopsy report. In any high-profile death, Especially a political assassination, the forensic report is the untouchable centerpiece of the evidence. It confirms the cause, the bullet trajectory, and the time of death. In Kirk's case, there are no public photos, no detailed forensic summaries, and no complete ballistic reports. 0. Skeptics argue this omission prevents the public from confirming critical details, such as whether the recovered bullet actually matched Robinson's rifle. Think back to cases like JFK, where a contested autopsy fueled decades of conspiracy. Here, we have no autopsy detail whatsoever. This is not a minor oversight. It is a monumental, deliberate gap that sits right at the heart of the ongoing debate. Was the lack of an autopsy intentional, designed to simplify the narrative and potentially suppress any evidence pointing toward multiple shooters or alternate factors? The death of Charlie Kirk is far more than a closed file. The initiated financial audit, the bizarre emergence of George Zinn as a decoy, the precision and contradictions surrounding the alleged shooter Tyler Robinson, the ambiguity of Lance Twiggs's role, and most critically, the absolute vanishing of the forensic autopsy all converge to create a narrative that defies simple explanation. The official story is that a politically radicalized young man acted alone. But beneath that surface, the unanswered questions persist. Was this a lone act of political hatred, or was it a calculated execution designed to stop someone who was digging too deep into powerful, hidden interests? Until authorities fully address the audit's findings, the nature of the decoy, and, most importantly, finally release the full autopsy details, the story of Charlie Kirk's death will remain forever unfinished, a dark chapter where the truth is still hiding in plain sight.